Journeys is your go-to podcast for all things creativity. I'm your co-host, Dave Petrosky, chair of the Communication, Media, and Screen Studies Department.
And I am your co-host, Melanie Uribe, Venezuelan designer and educator. This is the podcast about creativity, what it is in its many forms, and how we can become more creative in our everyday lives.
So welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Creative Journeys here at Southern Connecticut State University. Welcome back, Melanie.
Hello,
my lovely
Dave.
co-host. We're excited today to have our first guest of season 2.
So excited.
Yes. So Carolyn Cody is joining us today. She's actually an alum from Southern Connecticut. So I'm not going to go into a lot of details on my part because I'm afraid that I'm going to mess up the facts, right? So I'm just going to let you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll just, talk a little bit.
Okay,
All right.
great. Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Believe me.
So I graduated in 2009, Bachelor of Science in Studio Art with a concentration in painting. I originally came to the university to be an art teacher, and then I just decided I really would rather create the art. And so I switched majors, and kind of here I am.
So here you are. You started in art education, you switched to painting. Are you still painting? Is that your full-time role?
No, so currently I'm a design assistant for a home remodel company. It's called Gallery Dream Kitchen and Bath. So I kind of get to pair my love of people with art. So I get to pick out, stones for countertops, colors, backsplashes. I love a project. So whatever the project is, I love tools. So it's just people and art kind of in combination.
Okay, so it doesn't seem like it's a transition too far off from where you started, but do you mind sharing a little bit how painting got you into like this role of more interior design, project management?
Well, I always loved being creative and not necessarily just painting, but it could be drawing, any sort of crafts, really. I grew up going to art classes. My grandmother is a wonderful artist. My mom can draw. My brother can draw. So they definitely nurtured that in me as a young kid. And my grandmother, throughout her life, she kept wanting me to keep pursuing that in some way. And I spent a long time in sales and with people. And after I needed to transition out of that, I said to myself, I need to combine both people and art in some way. And I was like, kitchen and bath, I feel like that's kind of a draw. And I happened to know somebody in the business and just kept asking, like, hey, do they have a position? Do they have a position? Because I think I would do well in it. And so that's how I made the transition to doing that.
That's so interesting. But I love the fact that you have so much family support.
Yeah.
And that art and creativity was part of your upbringing.
Yeah. I would have always drawing, trying to be creative, have different ideas, and always doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, it's really always exciting to figure out, like, what role art, or actually just creativity in general, has in everybody's background. Because I think that, when we start to think about the things that we're passionate about or the things that we're excited about, usually there's some sort of a creative connection to that, right? Or at least that's the way that I think about it. So if you have that sort of cultivation as a child, you're going to be excited about those kinds of things. Now, other people are passionate about all kinds of other things. You could be passionate about film or, whatever's in pop culture or sports or whatever. But if you're really passionate about it, suddenly you start to become very creative about it, right? And that becomes part of your creative expression. And I just think that that's just an interesting it's an interesting journey to see how people are sort of taking that sort of a creative impulse and making that a part of their everyday life. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an important piece of what we're trying to explore in our show.
It's our favorite thing to talk about.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. But I think one of the things that I'm always curious about is just in terms of the creativity that you're sort of expressing yourself in a variety of ways. Painting was your main medium. Where did you draw inspiration from for the work that you did?
At Southern or just after?
Either or
All
both.
of the above.
Oh my gosh. I guess it goes back to the old saying, life imitates art and art imitates life. And oh my gosh, sometimes it's just, back in college, I remember learning about science, and they had just, I saw a picture one time of the mapping of neurons in a brain cell. And then I had a friend who had psychology, and we were also talking about mapping the universe, and they looked the same to me. The map of the brain and the map of the universe all looked like neurons. And I made that particular connection, and that kind of was a big inspiration to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're all kind of our own universe. And that led me down to creating particular paintings like that involved neurons. And that one is on the website that we were talking about before we started.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was a big inspiration. It was just opening textbook, seeing a picture, and then I had, a picture of the universe. And I was like, it was kind of like an aha moment.
And I thought, I've seen some of your other work, and I know that you've done some stuff with photography too, right? And was that similar inspirations for you, or?
Yeah, I love vegetables. And so I'm kind of big into seeing, I love science too. So seeing cells and kind of the smallest of the small that we can possibly see with our own eyes, so kind of going down that rabbit hole of, cells and neurons. And I just, was slicing some vegetables one day, and I was like, they are so beautiful on the inside, just thin slices of carrots. And
I find it so amazing and impressive when people find this inspirational and see the beautiful in it.
Yeah.
Because, as a designer, I also consider myself an artist. I think both things blend in a lot.
Yeah.
Not the same opinion that others have, where they're completely separate. And I love going to galleries and museums.
Yeah.
And I suffer from imposter syndrome a lot when it comes to my own art or my paintings, all my hands-on work, where I feel like, yes, I find this beautiful, like a simple vegetable. I find the vegetable beautiful, but other people are not going to find this beautiful. Like, they're not going to understand me and understand my art. But then I go to a museum and I see something of like, wow, this is gorgeous. Why don't I have the confidence to do this with the things that I find interesting and beautiful too? And I go through that battle constantly. It doesn't get better in my head.
It's a constant.
How do you go about it? Like, how do you see something like a vegetable and say, like, this is amazing. I'm going to paint it. I'm going to photograph it. I'm going to create some artwork, and I'm just going to put it out there in the world.
I think it's a little bit of time and place, having the time to actually be creative and have the draw. Sometimes it's actually a physical feeling I have in my body. And it's kind of, I remember it happening, and I was conscious of it, and it felt like as if somebody was pushing me behind my elbows. Like, it felt like a physical force. I'm like, what is happening? But I feel like I need to make something, and sometimes, or getting an idea, and it's just, you can't get it out of your head, and you have to get it out. So that painting, and it was just, it was a whole new world of discovery and innovation and science I was having, just cutting these vegetables. It was me in my apartment, completely dark, with my iPhone and a tiny little flashlight, and I was putting the light behind these thinly sliced vegetables and fruit too. And it was just illuminating a whole nother world that you don't look at. You're cutting and cooking the food to eat, not necessarily for art. In some classic art classes, okay, you have to draw a still life with art. And there could be vegetables or fruit or just a sculpture or something, but this was just a little bit different. And I don't know. I felt like it was really unique, and I was like, everybody needs to know about this. And it did, and a lot of the vegetables and fruit looked very, I don't know, like under the sea kind of, and everything just kind of seemed to be the same, and it kind of, reiterated the other thoughts I had about my other paintings where we are kind of all the same, and it's one universe, it's one mind, but everybody has their own perception, and yeah.
Yeah. I really want to look up more of your artwork.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, maybe, Jay, could you put the website up, maybe? We're going to get that up on the screen for us so that we can see maybe some of the pieces.
The painting here, this one right next to me, was one of the kiwis that I sliced. So on the website, there's the photographs I actually took, and then I turned some of them into paintings. So I did a bunch of the kiwis are really cool.
Now, some folks are going to be listening to the podcast without the visuals. So if you're not on YouTube, where we have the video, you can certainly, take a look at some of these pieces. We'll try to post some of them on our show page, and then we'll have links to Carolyn's gallery as well. But I think, it's really interesting because there's, when you have some of the photos of the vegetables, it's almost like science fiction.
Yeah, it's like if I don't see that picture, the one on top, Jay, that one, if I don't see that the name is Kiwi 3, I am not going to associate this with a kiwi.
Right.
I'm going to think this is some science, maybe some sort of like bug or something.
Yeah.
And it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, these are really amazing examples because I think that you've got...
that one up. That's the inside of a nectarine. And...
it looks like a planet.
Exactly. So there was the whole, kind of universe connecting to one another.
Sure.
But yeah, some of the textures of these fruits or the inside of a coconut, it looks like the surface of another planet. Even I went to Colorado a couple years ago and I did a hot air balloon flight, and going up on that ground, I felt like Colorado was another planet, but that texture of that landscape reminded me kind of like the fuzziness of some of the fruits. They took images of.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, there's, a variety of different, you've got a variety of different sort of vegetables and fruits and stuff that you're looking at, but you have other sorts of portraiture and that sort of thing. So maybe we can I'll maybe hold up this one,
Okay.
Because we have this over here. So that's another example of Carolyn's artwork.
So that was a self-portrait done actually on campus. That was in, I think, one of my freshman or sophomore classes.
That's
I can't remember
beautiful.
who it was with, but I took that
great
picture in one of the dorm windows. I was getting some good light, and it was a pencil drawing, and my hair looked good that day. And yeah.
Well, the thing that I think is really interesting is that there is this sort of almost an otherworldly feel to, and it's sort of consistent with the other work. You might be able to see some of the other pieces that we have here, and on the website you can see them as well. But there's this sort of ethereal quality to a lot of the stuff that you're doing. Right? There's a lot of sort of being more than just like a picture. It's like, oh, well, what's this environment like, or what's this experience of the person that's being the subject or something like that. And I think that that's a very, very cool thing. It's very a very broad way of thinking about things that might seem like you were talking about still lifes, which are fairly mundane in terms of application, and it's experimentation with
Practical.
light and practical and that kind of thing. But at the same time, it could be very beautiful if you think about what's going into it and that sort of thing. I think that's really insightful and yeah.
I would love to know how much now that you're sort of like a different career path, how much is painting still part of your day-to-day life? Maybe it's like 2 careers in one, like you feel like you have 2 full-time jobs, or how much are you trying to push your artwork into the public, going to galleries or shows and things like that?
These days, I typically do 1 painting a year, whether it's a commission for a friend or last year I did one for some friends that were getting married. So I did a painting of where they actually got engaged in Glacier National Park. So I kind of put 2 pictures they took together. Yeah, so typically 1 a year. I was just talking to a friend that just bought a new house in upstate New York, and they have some massive walls, and I was like, I'm doing a painting. And he's like, yes, you are. And it's going to go right here. And we're kind of just in talks about what they want and colors. And so, but I don't like, because I can paint and draw, but I'm really artistic kind of all over. So I'm not a painter. You know, sometimes people are like, oh yeah, Carolyn, she paints. I'm not a painter. I do it and I love it. It's just one medium that I use. You know, creativity is so broad, and you know, creativity is really about ideas and then moving forward with those ideas. So whether it's, you know, me and a flashlight with some fruit, you know, or paintings, you know, and kind of too, what I liked about photography is that it's kind of an immediate painting. You know, the camera is your canvas, you know, and you're just finding the right spot. But I'm still always taking pictures of nature. You know, I'm often out on the weekends and finding places to go. And so I don't feel like I have 2 careers necessarily, but it's still constantly there. And I don't want to do a painting if I don't have that creative vibe or those juices flowing. You know, otherwise I won't do it. You know, if I don't have that force within me, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's like a tension that I think that our students experience a lot, because there is, and I think that part of it is maybe the way that we educate or kind of ground our understanding of creativity and that sort of thing, where we see art as or see creative expression as just about that, like it's you like sort of having something to say or something to show or share, and you're trying to, you know, get that out into the world. You have a particular medium or something like that. When we're talking about design, it's very purposeful, and it's not, you have to do it when somebody asks you to do it, not when you feel like doing it, right? And that's a big tension that, you know, and so, you know, that exactly what you're talking about is like, okay, well, do I feel inspired to do this particular painting, or, you know, is my heart in this? Is it, I'm trying to get this, you know, out into the world, or you know, and that's I imagine that's probably part of the tension between what you do for your work and what you're doing, like with your photography and painting and that sort of thing. Do you find that that's a little bit difficult to?
Not with work. Work, there's kind of boundless colors and textures to play with, as far, you know, so it's kitchen, bath, and whole home remodeling. There's a lot to it. So kitchens are kind of static as far as this particular cabinet can go here and this and there, but everybody's home is a little bit different, so you can play with the structure and the layout. But as far as visually, the colors, I mean, every project is a little bit different, and everybody's ideas are a little bit different. Some people like really modern, and then some people are very simple. So it's always changing. So it's never that you're not inspired for another project. I'm always looking for another project, forward to another project, if that makes sense.
So you know, so you're basically like there's a parallel for you for your you know, sort of creativity for yourself, and then your creativity for work.
Yes.
And I find that that's a difficult thing for a lot of people to manage, right? Like they're not able to kind of see those as comparable. Right.
You're making me think so much right now.
Great.
Because immediately, like, I started putting myself in this persona, and like, okay, when I'm doing stuff for clients, I don't have issues either, right? Because I don't feel. Earlier in my career, maybe like 20 years ago, I would go into this like creative blocks and be like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I feel like a really terrible designer. That doesn't happen anymore. Like, I feel like with client work, I'm always okay. I'm always inspired. I'm always on top of it. But if I'm going to do my own research and I'm going to do my own work, whether it is design-based or writing, it's a disaster. And I don't feel inspired, and I can't move forward. And it's like I'm forcing myself to do something, and I'm just trying to find that spark somewhere.
Yeah. I think too, it's important to take time for yourself and feel inspired. I went to the MoMA a couple weeks ago, just because I knew I needed a little bit of inspiration. I was like, I need adventure. I need new ideas. I feel a little bit. I don't know, dry with creativity, and New York is always great for anything. So it's complete visual stimulation and sounds and smells.
It's a little overstimulating.
It's a lot. It's a lot. But, I hadn't been to the MoMA in I don't know how long. But everybody was there. Monet was there. Van Gogh was there. Everybody you could think of was there. And so it just kind of gave me a little bit of a refresh. But I learned that about myself, over 40 years, that I need that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the other thing, speaking to something that Melanie just said about, sort of that difference between what we're doing for clients or what we're doing professionally, if we're not like, a professional artist, how that's different from doing things on a personal level. And I think that part of it ties back to what my original thought was, which is that we have this difficult balance of how we're thinking about that expression as part of ourselves or part of our own identity. And what sort of starts to happen is we have those moments of self-doubt.
Oh, sure.
Because, I'm putting a piece of myself out in the world. How are people going to react to that and that sort of thing? And I think that's like the imposter syndrome stuff, right? It's interesting because both of you, when you're talking about your clients and consulting work and stuff, there's a degree of confidence that you're talking about there where that's not part of the conversation. You're not saying, oh, well, I don't know whether this is good enough, and that sort of thing. And I think that's a really interesting contrast because you're creative in both contexts, and you're using the same skills, and you're basically exploring the same sorts of things, but you're not necessarily feeling that lack of confidence in the professional capacity. And I really like intrigued about like how do we do that? Like, how does that happen? Like, how do you I think there's working with the public or your clients, there's a little bit less emotional vulnerability compared to when this is your literal blood, sweat, and tears. Right. Your paintings or whatever your design is, it's so. Well, and I think that, part of it, too, is that when you have a client, the client might not know how to approach things or something. So they're coming to you as an expert. So they're already giving you a personal credibility.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And what you're trying to do is interpret their identity into the work. So when you're putting the stuff out there, it's not just you, it's more about them. Yes. Right? And so it's like sort of decentering, who the artistic focus is. And that becomes a little bit easier to manage, maybe. I don't know. And like, I'm just sort of thinking out loud about this because I haven't really given it that much thought before.
I had never thought about it until now that you're putting it into words, but it's so true. Like my confidence as a professional designer is up here. Right. I believe I am the best.
Right.
And I'm going to give you the best. And I never really thought about how contrasting it is when it comes to my own work and the vulnerability of it and how much it puts of me in it. But yes, it is true. And you were saying it earlier. These are little pieces of you, right? And when I do put work out there for galleries or for conferences, it's very much a part of me and what I am interested as a person, not necessarily as a design professional and an expert coming in from a different perspective.
Yeah. And even selling certain paintings, some I just won't. Or I had even a hard time, giving that up because it feels like it's a part of you.
Well, yeah, and I mean that was always an issue because my mother-in-law was an artist. Like that's how she made her living, and we have a lot of her original artwork, and it's very difficult to think about letting that go, and just being able to have that. And now it's become something that's tied to memory and that kind of stuff. So now we have associations of when she did particular pieces and that kind of stuff. And I remember when she showed that to us for the first time, and that kind of thing. So now it has this sort of resonance that it might not have had if it was just somebody else's painting that we had gotten. So and I think that maybe that's sort of the attraction of having like art that's bought directly from the artist, as opposed to just ordering a print online or something like that. Like that print it seems like it's almost disposable, because it was so easy to get and that sort of thing. But when you buy it from the artist, you have a connection with that artist, right? And I don't know. I haven't really thought that through. Well, I
have a few prints. I only buy them directly from artists in person. I have never bought a print online or a painting online, even though I do look.
Yeah, right.
Yes, because there's a few artists that I'm a fan, I follow, and if they do a sale or something, I'm going to go to their website. I'm like, ooh, maybe this is the time for me to do it. But I've never actually gone to that step. But I love going in person to their pop-up shows or like the scene festivals. I love going to a scene festival because I know I'm going to find a lot of print artists with their original artwork and get a signed copy. And I love supporting them that way. But me and my husband just recently started our own art collection.
Very nice.
Yes, and we bought a few paintings and one sculpture that I keep in my office. And then that one hits different. Those hit different because these are like high price works. Yeah. And it's it's a whole other level. So I see it in a different way.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how we have these feelings for pieces in different aspects and different formats, or even the attachment to certain pieces. Like my husband has a lot of artwork that used to be his dad's. It's not up anywhere, but he can't let go of it. It's an attachment that it's going to stay there and it's going to be there because he probably remembers certain aspects of his childhood or moments of this painting was in this studio or in his office and things like that. And I have all these memories going around and I don't have that. I don't get attached to physical things. I'm all declutter, minimalist. So I find it very interesting to look at the thought process of everyone and how we all see things a little bit different.
Yeah. I like to see how other people perceive, whether it's my work or just other work in general. And I have one friend who she loves art, but she's like, I just don't know how people do it. I don't know. It's just how they do it. And it's, my thought process comes from more of a technical perspective, because doing the creation, I'm like, well, I know how they did that brushstroke or did this and did that. So sometimes I'm not necessarily impressed by certain art because I know how they did it, but other people are, other people don't necessarily have that skill set. So I think that's a really kind of cool perception to see.
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting sort of observation. Is that if you see what behind the curtain, then it
Yes.
dispels the magic that's behind it, right? And I mean that I feel that a lot at like going to the MoMA, for example, because there's certain pieces that I'm like, oh my God, like what, how did they do that? Like where did that come from? And it's, that's such an enriching sort of experience to kind of have that sort of magic and wonder. I look at some classical paintings that are like, landscapes and that kind of stuff, and it's photorealistic. And I'm like, how in the world were they able to do that?
There's what's the art museum that is in Hartford? I can't remember the name of it right now.
I don't know.
I'm blanking on it, but it's a big art museum in Hartford. And I finally, for the first time, I went last year. No. I went last year with a friend that was visiting, and I love going to museums, and I gravitate towards people that like that as well. And they have this big room that is all very realistic, old school portraits and like giant. And the room is huge, and the paintings are arranged sort of like collage mode and very close to each other. So from like floor to ceiling all around. And then in the middle of the room is where you actually have the legends. So you can see like, okay, this is what this is. And I remember just sitting there looking in awe how realistic these paintings were and the huge size of them, and just trying to figure out the process of the artist. And then there was one where the artist painted himself doing the painting. And I'm just like, okay, there wasn't much of photography back in the day, so how are they thinking about this and creating all of that? And I do get lost, and that's one of the things that I love about going to galleries and museums too, of just sitting there and trying to wonder, how was this created? What was the process? How long did it take? What materials did they use?
Well, and that's there's that's two things that I think are part of my experience with things like museums and that kind of thing. There's the how to, like, I just wish I knew how to do that, or that's fascinating to me that they were able to do that at all. And then the other side of it is what was going on here, like why that particular thing that they do, and some of the stuff that's when we had patrons and that sort of thing. I mean, that, especially with portraits and that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a reason somebody commissioned it, right? But then there's other folks that are doing their paintings just as a means of, sort of expressing or making a statement or commenting on, whatever issues that might be prevalent during that day or whatever, and just trying to figure that out. But I guess one of the things that I'm sort of curious about, and I'd like to hear what your thoughts are, is how much of that becomes tied. I'm really interested in that sort of connection back to identity, right? As the identity of the artist and how that comes through in the pieces, right? And how can we kind of think about that in other contexts as well, right? Like, we're talking about art specifically, right? But how do we see that sort of playing out in the work that we do in other situations? I don't know, maybe that's something that you're experiencing with the work that you do currently. It's sort of connected, but not necessarily the same as doing paintings and photography and that sort of stuff. So how do you kind of think about that sort of connection between the identity of the artist or the idea of the person that's doing the creation and those works that are observed by other people? Like, how do you kind of think about that? Do you have any thoughts?
I have to think about that question.
Well, I know it's a deep one. It's a deep one. I'm trying to like kind of that's where my mind goes. It's so if that's a little bit too heavy for us, we can kind of back off of that. But
think of how to go about answering that, or when I visually see other artists' work and what I think that they're going through. Sometimes, kind of side note, sometimes when looking at certain paintings or visual art, sometimes you can just get like a physical feeling from it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that kind of makes sense. Like when I was at the MoMA, there was this one whole room where they had, this artist he sewed together giant balls of stuffed animals from like vending machines, face in. And so they're all these giant like cloud, like, I have a picture of it. They look like little clouds, but of stuffed animals. But it gave like a physical feeling of very heaviness, And he had also had a little machine that put out like a scent of something. It's supposed to be pine. I didn't smell it, but and I was like, does he feel this heaviness? Was that part of it? Or is that my own perception that it feels heavy? Or was this like an intention? It just felt very emotional being in that room. Mm-hmm. So maybe, I don't know, I felt kind of depressed in the room. I couldn't. We know artists and their creativity and depression. And then, so I was trying to identify with him, like what he was feeling, at that time.
That's interesting because my work is very emotional and is very heavy, and it can be perceived as very depressive. I don't personally feel it that way, but I'm creating the work because I think it's important, because I think I need to create awareness, because I need to communicate. So a lot of my work is not necessarily because I find things beautiful, but the designer brain takes over and I want to communicate something. Communicate an issue, communicate the stories of immigrants or refugees, or communicate what I am angry about. Mm-hmm. A lot of my recent work, it's been more about like, I'm angry about these issues, so I'm just gonna put, refugees in your face, immigration issues in your face, and see what kind of response I get. Some of my earlier work was more about storytelling and people's narratives. And I remember being in a gallery, and I just recently part way with most of that work. I had it in storage for years, but I created these paper birds. And the birds were cut in half. So you will see only half of the birds coming out of the wall. And the other half, the intention was like, well, they're stuck in another world, in another country, in another lifetime. And you just see the stories of the people moving forward. And the birds were all handmade because I wanted to have that physicality and kind of like have that roughness to replicate the rough moments that people have had in their immigration journeys. And they were covering words. So I did interviews and I took snippets of those interviews and I put them on the birds. And I saw people crying.
Yeah.
And I never thought about it, never expected it, never created the work in a way that I want to make people cry. I want to make people emotional about this. And I had no idea that my work was going to be received that way. And it made me a little bit conscious of future work, because on one side, it was like, this is amazing. People are really connecting with my work. They're loving it. It's emotional. It's creating some sort of like awareness or connection. Maybe they didn't know this type of stories. But But now I think about it of like, okay, am I trying to create something where it's going to create that type of emotion? Or am I trying to create something where it's going to be, people are going to get angry about it, or they're going to see it as beautiful? And now I'm realizing that I get different experiences, right? And some people may get emotional and get teary eye out of it, and some other person is going to appreciate the graphics of it, and the beauty in it on that side, and somebody else is going to experience it in a different way. So now when I think about future work, I'm not so much like stuck on like how is it going to be perceived, but more of like, okay, this is the message that I'm trying to get, and I'm going to be open to all different kinds of interpretation.
Yeah. You can't control what other people are thinking or feeling, or, I mean, sometimes with art, you want to maybe persuade them to see an idea or be open to an idea or an event or something that's happening, but everybody's perception is going to be a little bit different. So you just have to do what you want to do, put it out there and kind of see what happens. So sometimes when going to galleries, I don't want to read the description that they have or necessarily the purpose. I want to have my experience first and then say, oh my gosh, you know, I thought about it completely differently. Or I wonder what the other people next to me are thinking.
I do that.
Yeah.
Well, I you know, one of the things that that came into my mind as we were talking is there was an exhibit that I saw at MIT a few years ago, and it was basically about it was an exhibit with the guy was creating like simple machines, but they had organic components to them, right? So he had like a wishbone, and basically the machine was making the wishbone like walk across the table, and it would like just, you know, walk to the end, and then it would turn around, and then it would walk back. It was like this really simple machine, and it was just such a really interesting thing that I don't know exactly. Like my reaction was, ooh, that's kind of gross. It's a wishbone, you know. But at the same time, like he was. You know, I think that he was commenting on, and I wish I could remember the artist's name, but it was pretty fascinating. And some of the stuff that he had was much more than the simple machines. It was like more complex, and it had like lots of layers and that kind of stuff. But I guess the thing that I was trying to, and it harkened back to our conversation last season with Jeff and Derek, where they were talking about like just sort of pushing expectations or trying to like explore something differently. And that was sort of what, you know, this guy's question in his art was, well, what is, you know, industrialization, machinery and that sort of thing? How does that interface with the organic or the human component? Right. And there was a lot of stuff like with connection to food and that kind of thing. And it was just very thought-provoking. And I hadn't necessarily, until this moment, you know, sort of raised the question about like, well, you know, how, you know, I'm thinking about this in terms of identity, but maybe what's happening there is that the artist isn't necessarily trying to express their own identity, but trying to tease out the identity of the observer.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, you know, because Derek, for example, with his films, you know, is talking about like how folks are getting a reaction to the things that he produces and that sort of thing. And, you know, we've kind of talked about him being a sort of a provocateur, you know, and kind of pulling that stuff out. And I think that's, you know, sort of a side that I think rounds out our kind of thought about, you know, what the role of the artist is, because, you know, the way that I was framing it just 15 minutes ago was, you know, sort of the idea that the artist is about just like expressing themselves, getting their ideas out there. But, you know, maybe it's more about, you know, that interaction and how the people are going to observe things from others. And that's what, that's the quality that makes it really engaging, and why we would want to go to a museum, because it's not, like you were saying, you went there for inspiration and you wanted to get recharged, right? Yeah. So what was that recharging going on? Well, it's actually activating your imagination and, challenging you to kind of think about, like, okay, well, how are they doing these things? Or what is it that they're trying to say? Or how are they expressing this particular thing? And I think that's like none of this is simple, or we wouldn't have creative journeys if we had a very, very clear path, right? And this is sort of meandering, but I think that the thing that I'm trying to just come to terms with as somebody that appreciates creativity in a variety of forms is, like, what is the center of the creativity? Like, where is creativity serving us in our everyday experience? And whether it's us actively doing something creative, or whether it's us being active participants or people that are appreciating the things being created. And I think those things kind of, they mesh together.
I think that's so unlimited.
It is.
Yeah, right. And if we start to think about, like, how we're doing that, or all the instances where we encounter something that's been created, like just in our day-to-day. How much of that are we actually reflecting on and thinking about? But just even something as simple as, somebody designed a coffee cup or something like that. And like that actually has direct impact on my life.
Yes.
And I appreciate that in a sort of a practical sort of a way, but at the same time, it's got this aesthetic to it, right? That I need to, acknowledge and appreciate. Yeah,
and I think we don't do it enough.
Yeah,
we forget about it because it's on our day to day. But if I connect this to design thinking, or if I connect it to product design, we are constantly thinking about these things and figuring out, like, okay, is this more ergonomic? Is this going to be more user friendly? And it has to be the same way with kitchens too. Is this cabinet going to open in a nice way for my client? Does my client have kids or dogs that may get into trouble? Are they shorter?
We're often measuring people, for where their shower head is going to be, or the handles, if we're doing something that's custom. So we're constantly thinking about that. Yeah.
It's just it's incredible how everything just goes into each idea, each element. Everything is just intertwined.
Well, and doesn't it come back to Carolyn's art and the things that we described at the very beginning of this episode, which was, wow, we've got these little pieces like fruit and that kind of stuff, and it sort of reminded you of the universe, right?
Yes.
So how do these things sort of fit together? So that's a very, we're coming full circle here.
We are.
I think we're running a little short on time, unfortunately.
Okay.
What I'd like to invite folks to do is visit Carolyn's website, and Jay can put that up on the screen for us as we go out. And I also wanted to remind folks that we're accepting input and feedback on the show at creativejpodcast@gmail.com. And we're more than happy to hear what folks are thinking about the show, the direction that we're going, and that sort of thing. We'll have more guests in future episodes, and we're very excited to have had the opportunity to talk with Carolyn.
Yes, it was so nice to meet you.
Yes, you
and
too.
Get to know about your work.
Yeah, thank you too.
So long, everybody.
Bye, everyone. See you on the next episode.
Creative
Journeys is a podcast produced at Southern Connecticut State University by faculty, students, and staff who are interested in exploring our creative potential.